Alarm went off. All right, it's 9 a.m. on Thursday, July 27th, 2023 at 9 a.m. This is the Policy and Procedure Committee meeting. Please call the roll, Amanda.
Behrens.
Yes.
Alt.
Here.
Awful. Here. Whitlow.
Here.
Sure.
Yes. Everybody has a copy of the agenda there. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Mr. Whitlow, second. Mrs. Awful. Any questions or comments regarding the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Do we have any public comments this morning? We don't have any public here. EMA report, Mr. Sacy.
Morning, Eric.
Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you good news. You're getting rid of me as the EMA coordinator. This will be my last PNP meeting. This will be my last PNP meeting reporting to you as the EMA director. Scott Anderson, my replacement, will be starting on Tuesday. Mr. Anderson comes to us with experience in not only fire and EMS, but also experience in the media and a variety of other disciplines. So, looking forward to him. One difference between Scott and I is I've always been a 50-50 split with the health department. Scott will be a 60-40 split. So he'll be 3 days EMA, 2 days a week public health emergency preparedness. So, like I said, he starts on Tuesday. While I will not be with EMA anymore, I will be 100% of my time at the health department as the administrator. I will still be there to show Scott the ropes and get him intertwined with all the projects that I am unfortunately leaving behind at EMA. When I started 9 years ago, there was a whole process that I had to go to for the first two years or so just to learn everything that needed to happen. So I intend on being there for him to get him through those years. So, and also, of course, I'll be teaching him everything from public health emergency preparedness. So instead of telling you what I've been doing for the next month, because who really cares what about me anymore, I'm going to tell you what Scott's probably going to be focusing on for the next few months. First, he's going to have a new coordinators workshop with IEMA. That's typically where the IEMA Region 7 person comes up and sits down with him and basically goes over the IEMA Act. So the IEMA Act is a state law that goes over all the requirements for an EMA. It goes over accreditation requirements. It goes over activities for LEPCs, local emergency planning committees, and he's going to go over a lot of the core functions that an EMA is supposed to be focused on, including EOP requirements, training requirements, so on and so forth. Now to go back to training, Scott's going to be going to a lot of trainings. I went to a lot of trainings my first few years, and because of that, I ended up getting multiple recognitions. I got a PDS certificate, Professional Development Series, and eventually I took a couple extra steps and I got my Illinois Professional Emergency Manager. Now that's not required, but Scott's going to end up going to a lot of the same trainings that I did. Those trainings are usually held somewhere within the state of Illinois. I would travel as far as sometimes to Effingham or I went to Northern Illinois a few times. Usually I try to stay within kind of our region, as close to the better, but sometimes you just have to get so many done within a year. So he's going to be traveling a lot to go to those meetings. Scott already is familiar with a lot of people in Iroquois County, so he's not going to have to build as many relationships as I did, but he is going to have to do some mingling. So I'm going to make sure he goes to meetings like the Mavis meeting that I attended last night. Amateur Radio Club is already part of, so that's pretty easy. Go on for so on and so forth, but plugging him in with local community partners is another thing that he's going to be needing to do. The mitigation project that we have going on, we're seeking a contract for that. I'm going to have to hand that off to him. Thankfully, we are going to contractor as opposed to my original idea a few years ago of me writing it. So that won't be something he has to learn right away, except for just being able to sit through the process with the contractor. And I'll be there for that, to advise him along the way. Let's see. An EOP, an emergency operations plan, will probably be due within the year or two. Now, we were going to have one due this spring, but the last minute, IEMA decided to forego the due date because they wanna update the requirements for emergency operations plan. We expect to hear what those new requirements will be come fall, hopefully, or maybe next summer. We're not quite sure when IEMA is gonna get those new requirements to us, because it has to be passed by law at the state level in order to be a requirement for us local EMAs. So, that'll be new for Scott, it'll be new for me too, whatever new requirements they come up with. We've heard some rumors of what they might be, but that's not worth a ton of weight until it's actually in black and white in front of our eyes, so we shall see. So in short, the new guy is gonna have a lot of trainings, he's gonna need to establish new relationships, and a couple of the new requirements he's gonna have is making sure he meets training requirements, exercise requirements, and an EOP probably within the next 2 years. All is doable, and I'll be able to show him those.
We appreciate everything you've done in your position.
Oh, yes.
Thank you very much. I've held EMA for about 9 years. May 28th, 2014 is when I started. And I'm proud of what I've built. I could have done a lot of things better. It's one of the things I'm hoping to do with Scott is when he reaches something I've been to before, I'm gonna tell him how I messed up. Something that I didn't have, and I wanna be able to give that to the next guy. I want EMA to continue to grow. I told the finance committee the other day, I think the county needs to eventually have a 2 full-time staff EMA. And county board should be preparing to build up to that in order to properly fulfill the duties of EMA and make sure that we're fulfilling all the new accreditation requirements that have come out of the past 5 years. And I'm expecting to continue to grow, especially with the new EOP requirements. It's something that I feel like county board should be looking to. Because doing half-time EMA has been a lot. And I used to be able to do it because I was single or just recently didn't have kids. That changes. I can't do all-nighters once a month anymore. I gotta do my all-nighters at home when the kids see them. So, yeah, I appreciate being with EMA for this long. I'm going to miss it a lot, and probably just see if I can hold on to my keys so I can go sneak over in the office sometimes. That's up to the sheriff though.
One thing that I talked with Eric about yesterday that we need to do in addition to some of what he just mentioned with Scott is to develop a flood response plan for the county. We have an emergency response plan that has many of those things in it, but last week when I was over in Indiana, the Army Corps of Engineers put on a program for some of the counties over there about it, going over their flood response plan, getting them updated, getting them be all inclusive of what's needed and so forth. So that's something I think we need to have here as well. So that's another thing that will be put on Scott's plate to get done. But it's all things that we need to have here in order for us to be discharging our responsibilities, be prepared for whatever happens as best we can and so forth, so.
Where is he from? What's he good? And how old of a gentleman is he?
I didn't ask. He's older than me.
Older than you? Well, that's very young.
We're not entitled to ask people their age.
I thought that was just for women.
Yeah.
Actually, he'll be here at 10:30 this morning. He wants to talk to me about something apparently not related to this, but I told him we'd be down here about 10:30, so he's gonna be coming by then. See how it all times out, you may have a chance to meet him. If not, I think our intention would be to have him be at the Health Committee meeting on Tuesday. Right?
No, I was actually gonna keep him busy, but we can talk offline about that later.
Well, Tuesday's his first day, the Health Committee meets and, he's public emergency preparedness, you can introduce him to the Health Committee then, right?
I could. I could. I'm not quite sure if that would be We can talk later about that, Jim.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Folks.
We'll go on to the committee chair reports, and I guess we'll begin with Mr. Barnes on the Management Services Committee.
Regular reports and see where we're at with morgue and where we're at with fencing and stuff over at the dogs.
Okay, very good. This is Awful Health Committee.
We'll have our normal reports and animal control.
Mr. Whitlow, Judicial.
Usual reports, and also make note of that Safety Act. They ruled it was constitutional in Illinois, so it starts September the 18th, I believe. It goes into effect, which is gonna put a big hardship on judges, police officers, right on down the line, in my opinion. And I encourage everybody to read up on it.
The governor says it's gonna be a blessing for us.
I know he did. But it's gonna be, well, it's gonna be in my own mind, I don't see how it benefits much.
Well, with your background, I'm sure you're in a good position to evaluate a lot of that.
Yeah, it's scary. Thank goodness the judges on certain things will have the final say. That's the good part of it. But normal things like breaking into a house or something, or a shed, doesn't look good.
Okay, Finance Committee, Mr. Barnes.
I guess we'll probably go over some of the stuff from budget hearings.
We have more people coming to the committee as well to give their presentation.
So. Oh, we do?
Yep.
Somebody? Okay,
We have 4 more people coming.
okay. Mr. McTaggart had gotten with me on any of that, so.
All right, Highway Committee, Mr. All.
Well, hopefully we'll start our meeting at 8:30 at the Transportation Center, not Friday, but Thursday of next week. Hopefully get it done in time for the Finance Committee meeting that it meets up here. I understand notice will be sent to the Finance Committee and the Transportation Committee personnel, the changes I just mentioned. We'll have the claims and not much else this week.
Very good. Yep, Finance Committee will be meeting at 9:30.
Okay.
At 9 o'clock.
They need to sleep anyway.
They'll be sharper on their toes,
That give me a chance to do something before.
whatever. Okay, I think that takes care of that. We'll forego the chairman comments, get an update on the sexual harassment training. Jill?
We dropped just a little bit, but we did add some new employees on, so I'm expecting for that to bounce back up over 90%. So we're currently at 89%, and like I said, once new employees complete the training, we'll bring that back up over 90%, I'm sure.
Last month it was 91%.
It was, but we've added some people and taken some people off, and we're at 89% right now, so like I said, once the new hires get their training done, I'm sure it'll bounce back up.
Okay, very good. That brings us to the discussion and review on our Iroquois County Code Manual. I hope you all had an opportunity to go through that since our meeting last month. County Clerk is with us this morning and she has 2 copies of the book as well as the one that I have here. I'm just gonna start on the first page here, which is just a cover page. The only changes that we'll make there was, it says that it was published in 2014. And when we get through, whatever year that is, that year will change, otherwise everything there stays the same. Although that Municipal Code Corporation down at the bottom, we're not using them this time, so that'll be taken off as well.
How are we going to update this if we're not using municipal code?
What?
How are we going to update this if we're not using municipal code? We don't have a working document.
No, the one before was done for us by the Municipal Code Corporation. We must have paid them some money to do this.
Right, but how are we going to update it if we don't have them do it?
Who's gonna print it?
No, not print it. Who's gonna create the document? We don't have a document that we can adjust.
We don't have any of this in any document?
We have it in a PDF and we cannot, I'm not going to type every single one of these things out, I'm sorry. I mean, any changes we make, we will submit to municipal code and they will update, but it's going to cost us money to do this.
Do we have any idea how much?
I'm not the one that wanted to change the code. I didn't ask. I have no idea how much it'll cost. I think last time it was, I wanna say around $8,000.
So probably 10 or more now.
I know.
I'm sure it's gone up. But
But if it needs to be done, it needs to be done.
right, I mean, municipal code has taken care of our code since we created it in 1982. I don't know why we wouldn't continue with municipal code.
Okay, that's all fine, I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, we can look at it and
That wasn't the way I understood it. That's-
figure out what we need to do, but
I guess we need to get some idea what it's gonna cost to find out if we got money available to do it. If it's gonna get done, completed next year, which is likely to be the case, then it needs to be included in the budget for next year. So we better make a note to try and see if we can find out what the cost is gonna be or get some estimate. Going on, then there's a page here that just talks about, says about the officials of the county that again was listing at the time of the people that were on the county board, the state's attorney and the county clerk, that all could be updated. There's no activity that I think that we need to do. In the preface of the thing, I think that's also pretty stock. I don't, when I went through it, I didn't see any reason for any necessary changes to be made there other than just updating some things. Anybody else have any thoughts on that part of the code? Basically, all it's doing is like talking about what's in the book, how the book works and so forth. I think that's all gonna be the same. I don't think there's gonna be any differences there. Like I said, there's some names here on acknowledgements and so forth of different people, that those will all be updated. It's not a big deal there, so. Going on, there's a code of ordinances which may have to be modified as we go through the book. So we may have to come back to that because that's like an index of what's in here, so. In the first part of the book that I've got, it says Code of Ordinances, and it's completely blank, so I don't know why that is, but that's the way this book is, so. I know all of our ordinances are on file in the clerk's office, but my book begins with general provisions. Again, that's, I think, pretty standard. I don't know that there's anything in there that necessarily we need to change. There's a lot of definitions in there about what different words mean. I did not see anything in there that I thought need to be changed. Does anyone else have anything that they saw on that part that needs to be? One of the things that I think, there's several things that stand out, but one of the things that stands out to me very well, because we oftentimes encounter this in state statutes and other places where the word may is used and the word shall is used. And there's a definition in here. It says may is permissive and shall is mandatory. I think those terms are very significant in anything that we look at as to what we can and cannot do. And that, again, the fact that it's clarified here is always a place we can go back to and say, well, here it is. That's what the words mean, so. Other than that, I don't know that there's anything in that particular part of it that needs to be changed. It talks about some of the procedures that we have to follow through, like repealing ordinances and resolutions and that sort of thing. I don't know that there's anything in there that we need to change. I think that's all pretty much the way we want it to be. So that brings us over to the part that's called administration, which is what I think we were primarily focusing on when last month when we talked about going through this. If we could begin on page CD 25, which is Article 1 in general. Use of the county jail by municipalities. Says that anybody arrested or convicted in a violation of an ordinance of a municipality shall be kept or housed in the county jail unless such municipality has concluded an agreement with the county board authorizing same. So my question is, do we have agreements with all of the municipalities in the county to allow their people to be kept in the jail, people who have violated one of their ordinances? Does anybody know if we have such agreements in place?
Well, how many of their ordinances are actually going to be jailable versus a state statute?
I guess it depends on the ordinance of the municipality.
I don't know of any.
You know, because most of that is things to do with burning and, you know, things like that, where you're not gonna throw somebody in jail, you're gonna fine them.
Well, if somebody is a repeat offender, at what point do you get to that stage?
I guess if that's something that we think needs to happen, that maybe needs to be rolled in with the agreement for 911 and all that stuff, the fees of that.
Well, the point is, it says here,
I know. It's
so
just-
what we're deciding is what it says here, what we want it to be or not. We want it to be what it says, we can leave it. If we want it to be something different, that's what we're supposed to decide. Even if there isn't something that we can think of and that would fall under that category, at least it's a pathway to where if it does happen, I have to have an agreement with the municipality to do so.
This might be something from an old statute also. Looking at a lot of these things, there's a lot of stuff from old statute that are no longer valid. I don't know if at one point in time, and it doesn't reference like a ordinance or a statute that it would refer to, so I'm not 100% sure on if there was a statute that required municipalities to use the county jail, like to have an agreement. I don't know, I'm not sure.
I guess at this point, it doesn't hurt anything to leave it.
No, it's just a matter that if it's there and if it's something that we should have these agreements in place, that's my question. Is there any, do we have any agreements like that? Watsika uses the county jail, do they not?
I think everyone uses the county jail.
But I mean,
Clint would be a good resource for this part of the code to ask him. Cause I really have no idea.
if you're saying they have to have an agreement in place to use the county jail, that's one thing. If they wanna say they can use the county jail without an agreement, that's another thing. I mean, this is saying they have to have an agreement. If we don't want them to have an agreement, they can use the county jail, then
How can you keep them from not using it? They're paying taxes for it.
well, I think they should have the right to use it. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, I'm just saying,
I don't think I think the agreement is implied.
this says that they're.
I think back in the olden days, every town had a jail.
Yeah.
I know Crescent
It's not
did, they
the
have
olden
theirs in
Gilman
the,
did
where
too.
City Hall is.
Have their own gym, it's still.
Well, they have that little cage thing, but they also had it in the City Hall
Cells,
building
they want
in the
something
bottom of
else to
that,
the county.
so.
Geez, simple as that. It's implied.
Goes through the
And
judges
the day
anyway.
when they did that and accept them in the county, accept it being county.
All I'm saying is how do we wanna word this, Charlie? That's all I'm talking.
So yeah, are we going to keep
I
it
think the
that
more
they-
we start defining it is, we undefine something else.
Do we want to keep it that they have to have an agreement, or just say that they are able to use the county jail? I
That's
guess,
what I've been saying.
is
I
that,
don't
you,
think we need it.
It's a county jail.
so you think we need
It
to not have
doesn't need to be
an
in
agreement?
writing, it's already
I don't think
implied
we
by
need
how
it.
it's been used for years.
I don't think we need an agreement, do we?
That's what I said.
I'm agreeing with you.
So then how would we word
Nobody
that?
told them when they took those one little cells, like I know where it was in Cessna Park. When they discontinued use, I was a little guy, maybe I wasn't even here yet. What did they do? They didn't go to Danville with them.
Just juveniles.
Yeah, that's great. I'm in agreement with that. I think we all are. It's just how do we wanna word what's in the ordinance?
The
So,
word, the county jail in Watsika,
well, it's just, instead of no person arrested or convicted, it needs to say something to the effect
You could say any person arrested or convicted of a violation of an ordinance of a municipality may be kept or housed in the county jail, period.
kept there before they're even convicted.
Any person
Arrested.
arrested or convicted
Okay, that covers
of
it.
a violation of an ordinance of a municipality may be kept, maybe, they don't have to be, they may be kept or housed in the county jail.
Well, some offenses are not heavy enough to be kept in jail.
Right.
Right,
Speeding ticket maybe, you know. Take the car away from them.
I would say the way you worded it is probably the appropriate way to do it.
I guess the best thing to do is if we can keep a written record of some of these things and then, okay.
If it's a felony, they're gonna be over here regardless.
This is what we're trying to do by updating this thing, is to make it so that it applies to the way we're doing things, the way we wanna do things today and going forward.
We'll use that word.
So are
may,
you
not shall.
saying putting a period after jail and then striking unless such municipality has concluded an agreement with the county board authorizing the same,
Yes,
okay?
the next one is the recording of ordinances. It says the county clerk and recorder shall record in a book used exclusively for that purpose all ordinances passed by the county board, period. Immediately following each ordinance, The county clerk and recorder shall make a memorandum of the passage of the publication and of the publication when required of the ordinance.
That's required by law, so we do that.
So that's accurate the way it says, so we leave that alone. Next one talks about prevailing rate of wages for laborers, mechanics, and other workers. Says to the extent and as required by 820 ILCS 130, whatever, SCQ, which I guess is anything that happens after that. Talks about the general prevailing rate of wages. I think all that is correct. Down in subparagraph C, it says the county clerk and recorder shall publicly post or keep available for inspection by any interested party in the main office of the county clerk and recorder this determination or any revision of such prevailing rate of wages. Is that what we're doing?
Well, we have it available because it's available online. So when this was written, the state used to send the prevailing rate of wages to the county clerk's office for dissemination to anyone that needed it, any municipality that needed it, any township, anything like that. So they've changed the way prevailing wage works now as far as the dissemination, and it's all available online now. So we do have it. I mean, obviously, if you have the internet, you have it, so it's available. We don't publicly post it anymore because that requirement was taken away.
So if we remove the word publicly post,
You're gonna have to create an ordinance to remove the word publicly post. You know that, right? Like, we're not just gonna be able to strike it. It's gonna have to take a whole new ordinance, and it will say that Iroquois County Code will be amended from saying this to saying the new thing. I just wanna make sure that
Do we have to do that for each individual thing, or can we do it as a whole when we're done?
you can do it as a whole, but each section will have to be amended and changed. So I'm just making sure that you guys know that an
It's-
ordinance will have to be created to change everything that you're changing. Okay?
It's not like the
Not like the
policy.
policy manual, not at all.
first we have to decide what we want to change.
Right, right.
Well, I guess my question is if in that paragraph, subparagraph C, if we remove the word publicly post, does that make it a?
I mean, I think it's fine leaving it like it is because it gives the option, publicly post or keep available for inspection.
Okay,
I think I don't see changing it, I really don't.
these are reasons why I'm looking for your
Right.
input today, because
Right.
these obviously are things that relate to you. In paragraph D, it talks about the county clerk and recorder mailing a copy of this determination to any employer and to any association of employers and to any person or association of employees who have filed their names and address requesting copies of any determination. I'm pretty sure we're doing that. I know when we go
Well,
off
we
of this.
will do it, but no one files their and wants it anymore because it's available online. So, but we will do that if someone calls and wants it.
So throughout this, where it says mail, do we need to at some point clarify mail to include email,
I think it's
or it's implied?
implied, I do,
Okay.
yeah.
It's a form of mail.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, then let's go on to section 2-4, special job training programs district. I'm not sure when this was put together exactly how everything was structured, but this really is talking about workforce development. Workforce development is under the governance of the Champaign Regional Planning Commission. There is a board that they talk about in here, in subparagraph D, which says it's be known as the policy board. They call it the CEO board. I happen to be the chairman of that board right now. But I think that's what they're talking about here. The only question I have about this whole section is if it's accurate the way it's written, that I guess that's fine. If it isn't, we would need to determine what changes should be made. Probably I could get together with Dr. Arnold and go over some of that and see if he has any thoughts about it. But as I said, I know the contract or whatever from the state is with the Champaign Regional Planning Commission. And the district includes Douglas County, Piatt County, Ford County, Iroquois, and Champaign County. I really don't know that there's anything else we can do with that particular section right now. We can come back to it if everybody, unless somebody has any other thoughts. Move on to section 2.5 filing fees. I think sounds to me like it's accurate. The only question I have on that, it says that the fees collected are retained in a special fund and are used solely for equipment, materials, and necessary expenses incurred to help defray the cost of implementing digital or electronic documents and maintaining a computer or record system. Is that accurate?
Those are automation funds.
So that's accurate
Yes,
the way
but
it's
in that, when we do redo this, I want the fees added in. This is what I was talking about,
right.
where it takes the fee out. So in 1984, there was $1 collected for every filing instrument. It went up to $3 now for every document. $1 goes into recorder automation and the other goes into the general fund.
Is that the list of the fees something that you want to include in section 2-7?
Well, fees need to be added in 2-5, 2-6, 2-7, 2-8, 2-9, all fees need to be put back in. So, yes, they all need to be added.
Okay.
When it comes to it, because they were previously in there, and like I said, when Jim Devine reviewed this, he struck that and just put on file in the county clerk's office, and that was considered a amendment that could be made without creating a new ordinance because they're on file in the clerk's office. Anyway, all of those fees really, like I said, should be in here because it's not convenient for the public to be able to look at our code and find out how much we charge for things. And we need to have those in there, so they all.
I guess we'll need you to prepare the language and the amounts for that.
Right, yes, and I mean, Lisa Hines will have to prepare the language for the court automation fee because I don't know what it is unless it changed from 2014 when an ordinance was passed.
Yeah.
So, but the things in the recording area, I can definitely update, and in the clerk area, but, I don't have everything in front of me right now as far as those.
Okay. That takes us to section 2-10, smoking in the courthouse. So smoking is hereby prohibited within the county courthouse, except for private enclosed offices therein.
Well, since now it's state law, that you can't have, I mean, I guess, is it, even in the private offices, I don't believe it's allowed, is it?
No, I'm not sure if we passed an ordinance when the state law became effective, but it refers to the state law reference. So it'll be a matter of looking at that to,
So it's really the last clause except for private enclosed offices, whether that should be left in there or not.
right,
Same thing on the next one for the administrative center. So basically, we're saying we need to research the state law in order to determine that, or do we have the
well, we
authority?
gotta see what it says, what it said back in when they passed these ordinances and what it says now to see what the difference was.
I guess my question is, even if the state law doesn't say anything, can't we still ban smoking in private offices?
I mean, yeah, you can. I don't know if you necessarily need to pass an ordinance since the state law requires there to be no smoking within how many feet, 15 feet of a building, public building?
As administrator of the health department, I would encourage you to ban smoking inside the government buildings.
I mean, it is banned because of the law.
It is already. I
Right.
encourage you when you make any changes to the county code, but might as well just.
But the point also is that some of the things that are in the state law are also referenced in our code throughout, just to reaffirm it or make clear that that's what it is, so, I mean, if we wanna you wanna ban smoking completely in the buildings, I think if we have the right to do that, I guess it's up to us to decide that whether we wanna do that.
It's our building, I think we have the right to do
I say
whatever we
yes,
want.
yes.
And
What do you think,
technically,
Charlie?
I'm not sure on that. Have a trained attorney tell me what to do on that.
Okay.
I think we should follow the state law, no?
Well, if the state law doesn't say one way or the other, the question is, do we still have the right to do it?
If it's my office, I'll decide who smokes in it and who doesn't.
No, you can't do that.
Yes, I will.
There's exemptions, and if it's a private residence or dwelling, if it's a retail tobacco store, if it's a hotel, motel, sleeping room, enclosed laboratories, common smoking rooms and long-term care facilities, but otherwise it's banned everywhere, so
There are common smoking rooms in long-term care
apparently.
facilities.
Have to go by state law.
So my question is, when this ordinance was passed in 1990, the statute probably had an exception that allowed the private offices. So if we change it, just smoking is hereby prohibited within the county courthouse, period, then we have to reference the state law that refers to it and why we're passing it, so.
So it sounds to me like we wanna remove that last clause about,
yes,
okay?
on courthouse and administrative building.
Right, okay. Section 2-12, county offices closed December 24th, exceptions, all county offices except the circuit clerk, state's attorney, sheriff, courts, and probation department shall close at 12 noon on December 24 of each year hereafter until otherwise changed by the county board. It's still the way we operate, so that should stay the same. 2-13, public transportation provided. If the county provides public transportation within the county limits, the chairperson of the county board is hereby authorized to execute an intergovernmental agreement for that purpose. Well, we don't provide public transportation, the county doesn't provide it, so I'm not sure how applicable this is. The other question I had is who is the county chairman gonna execute an intergovernmental agreement with? The transportation company
authority.
isn't a government entity.
Well, it's,
You don't have any public
When-
transportation, you don't have
it's
to worry
looking
about
at
what we're agreeing with.
the county would grow to a point like counties up north where they are government run, but they have certain you know, they may have their own taxing authority and stuff, then that would, so I don't think we need to change it.
Okay,
You don't have it, you don't have it.
It says if there is, so.
well, it says if, I mean, that's the first word, which is the key ingredient, but
Are you saying you're not considering entering into an intergovernmental agreement with Chicago Transit Authority?
Not at this time.
Maybe we could have a Pony Express of some kind, you can keep it at your barn.
boy, that's an idea.
All right.
Best idea you had this morning.
I don't have many good ideas, I know.
Did I get rental for that?
Did we recently update
We're not gonna feed your animal.
the depositories? Did we recently update?
It gets updated every
In the winter time, it's dog
every
teams.
4 years when the treasurer is elected, and then Kurt did have it changed, but then had to
He
have it
spends all
changed
day
back.
getting there from here to there, then
because I
goes
worked
back home, we didn't have a chance to take anybody today.
Mush.
Like
Didn't have the time.
or whatever, so.
I thought I had
We're
heard
supposed to
something
build him
about
a barn here, so.
changes.
Keep them
Right,
overnight.
so it gets updated every 2 years, but
Bring a new team
nothing's
in the
been
morning.
submitted since 2010, it looks like.
We just need to put in here the updated list.
Right, it would just need to be submitted.
That takes us down to the county board, Article 2. Size of the county board. Says the county board consists of 20 members with 5 members elected at large, so that needs to be changed to 16 members with 4 members elected at large from 4 separate county board districts. Chairman and vice chairman are chosen, that part is correct, so we need to change the numbers on the county board. 2-33, the number of districts and representation is accurate except for 4, changed it to 4 county board members elected from each district. Over on page, next page, section 2-34, officers. Says at the first meeting in even numbered years, the county board shall by majority vote choose one of their members as the chairperson of the county board, and vice chairperson of the county board, and so forth. I guess that's right, it's an even number of years. Okay, so I guess that's fine the way it is. Brings us down to standing boards and committees. First one is Board of Review. I think that one is pretty much okay the way it is. We have a Board of Review in place. We appoint members to that Board of Review from time to time, and so forth, usually at the recommendation of the Supervisor of Assessments. So. Finance Committee talks about all their duties, so that's what part of what we want to go through here in some detail and make sure that everything is what we think it should be. We talked first one, A, under subparagraph A about receiving and considering the budget. I think we're doing that. B is approving the transfer funds to line items as needed. We're doing that. C, review the overall county operations. We're doing that. Same thing with D. E, the medical insurance, we're doing that. F. I think we're doing that one. G. I guess we talk about that at that committee. I don't know if that's very good to that committee or not. But that's probably all right to do there. Anybody have any thoughts on any of those? One thing that I feel like that we need to do is, since we've integrated the IT committee in with the finance committee, I think that should be included here. about the finance/IT committee, and I think there's another committee where it talks about IT duties. And those duties should be added in here for the finance committee. Probably get to that in a minute, but does that make sense? Any other changes that you think we should make? Okay, next one talks about policy and procedure committee. Consists of the chairpersons from the standing committees, that's what we're doing. Consider and recommend matters to promote industrial, commercial, and residential and recreational development of the county. Act in an advisory capacity to all standing committees. Consider and make recommendations concerning maintenance and upgrading all data processing functions used by or affecting the county government. So maybe that is one of the things that should get moved up to the finance committee. Subparagraph C. Where it talks about data processing, that's IT. The policy and procedure committee is to represent the county to other governmental bodies. Develop good relations between the county, its employees, and the public. Prepare and distribute information, news releases dealing with the activities of the county board, departments, officers, and officials when asked. Interpret board policy regarding all aspects of personnel administration. Review all appointments, except those made by chairperson of the board involving chairperson and standing committee members. I'm not sure I can quite understand all that, but that's all. Consider matters related to the operation plans and procedure of the emergency.
That might need, instead of ESDA, it probably should be EMA.
You can change to EMA if you want, but ESDA is also okay. It says the ESDA, so it's kind of saying, spell out the Emergency Services Disaster Agency. And we'll have to, when we get to the EMA ordinance later on, it may also say the Emergency Services Disaster Agency, so that actually may be consistent, but if you wanna change it, it's no problem.
I think it's better to make it EMA since that's what we use.
That's just fine.
I think that's, one of the purposes in reviewing this is to get everything updated to the way we're doing it. The way we wanna do it or should be doing it. Also goes on, it says develop programs for position classification, pay administration, recruiting, employee relations and records, rules governing office hours, vacation, sick leave, holidays, promotions, grievances, county purchasing policy, consider appointment of a personnel purchasing director. Why is that in there?
Is that what the finance used to be? Something from it.
That used to be what finance used to be called though, I know that position
No,
was
it's
a
called
lot
data
of-
processing.
Oh, done, okay, then I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
I
I
knew it was
don't,
a different name, I just couldn't remember it.
When it says consider appointment, it sounds to me like that was a project that they wanted to consider doing. You know, within in the near future at some point.
yeah,
I
without
don't believe
looking
that's
when this
anything
was
that-
passed, I don't know.
I don't believe that's anything that we have on the radar right now. I don't know that if it did come up, it's, can always be changed or whatever, but I would say that number 10 probably could be removed. Number 11, management labor negotiations is, we have a separate committee called negotiations, which is not shown in here. That's one of the things, changes we need to make, to have that committee identified as such. So number 11 should be taken out as well from the policy and procedure. otherwise I guess most of what's in there is accurate. I think it reflects things that we're doing, the projects that we're working on and have been working on. Anybody else have any thoughts? Management Services Committee considers all requests for space, sets policy for care and custody of all county property, provides subcommittee insurance of finance executive with appropriate information for the protection of the county and its property from loss, damage, liability, and other risks. Confused by that.
Well, I didn't realize that there is an insurance committee that is a subcommittee of finance, and I think that's what this is talking about. So I'm wondering if, when this was written, that management services had to provide the members for that subcommittee of insurance. That is my guess on what that is. But there is an insurance committee that used to meet.
As far as I know, we don't have that committee and it's not active and
Right, but that's
that's
what that is establishing, is the subcommittee of insurance to.
See, probably could be.
The way I read it is that the management committee provides the subcommittee with the information. So basically supplies them with all the information on the buildings and stuff that need to be insured.
Right,
Not
okay,
actually,
the members,
yeah.
It wouldn't have to be a separate committee, it could be part of the management committees where it is.
Well,
That's your duty.
basically it would be that we're not gonna send it to the finance or to the insurance committee, to go to finance instead, because that's who takes care of the insurance now, right? So I mean, basically it's saying if they have questions, we need to gather the information and give it to them.
They review the policies every year and they've got all the information they need. You're not sending anything to them now. Why
Yeah.
question it? Should this be? If they want that information, it's pretty easy to get it by asking. I don't know that it needs to be stated as such.
Well, but we gotta remember, I mean, if this was originally done in '82, things weren't all computerized then. In 1982, you just barely had any computers out there.
well, this could be an ordinance that was passed in the 60s or 50s. It was
Yeah.
just codified in 82, so I'm not sure what year this
But
was
yeah, I mean, it can come out, I don't care.
originally passed.
I mean, that's what I would say, just from the standpoint of simplifying and making it clear, but any committee that needs information from another committee is very easily gotten and provided, so. D says about overseeing the administration duties required with the management of Clifton Farm, I guess we're doing that. Make long-range plans for future need in county buildings and facilities, I believe we're doing that, so.
So we'll be removing C.
Well, is there anything else that the management committee does that,
Well, it's only specifically stating the Clifton Farm, and there are other farms besides that. The previous county farm land is not part of Clifton Farm. So I don't know how specific you wanna get on that.
you could say Clifton Farm and other county farm properties,
Maybe.
something like that?
It should list all your properties in that, if it's the same for all the properties. There's more than one property.
I mean, really, in a sense, B, when it talks about care and custody of all county property,
Right.
really, we should include that anyway.
Yeah, so I don't know why they specifically unless it was, if, maybe this was written right at the time when they were deeded to Clifton Farm, so they wanted to, I don't know.
I think there used to be a separate committee for the county farm, and that could be why management had Clifton Farm.
Okay.
Did we get the Clifton Farm at the same time we got all this other property for the courthouse and?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It all came at the,
that was all part of the
that
Clifton
was back
Farm.
in the 1960s, wasn't
But we had the county farm, the Green Acres house before that.
it? We were all young and spry. Well, I guess the question is there anything else that you think should be added on for as far as the duties of the management committee? Are we overlooking anything, or is there anything that needs to be changed?
I think it's written broadly enough that it covers everything.
So then let's go to Judicial and Public Safety. Judicial Public Safety Committee reviews all matters related to the law enforcement process for adults and juveniles, including apprehension, detention, persons charged with violation of criminal laws. Review all purchases, lease contracts, and other expenditures relating to the purchase of required supplies, food, and equipment for the operation of the sheriff's office, coroner's office specified in the county purchasing ordinance. County have a purchasing ordinance?
We must.
You can't cite that just by.
I guess, that you guys talk about some of those things, right? But if you leave off the part about as specified in the county purchasing ordinance, then is that a more accurate explanation or statement?
I mean, if we have a county purchasing ordinance, it should be followed, so it needs to be in
It
there.
says we don't have one.
No, she
I
said
don't
doesn't
know. And they may have been trying to, going back when they're talking, considering appointment of a personnel purchasing director, maybe when this was passed, they were trying to pass something and that was included, because I am not aware of a purchasing ordinance.
That'll be contingent on whether we have one or not.
I guess, I mean, I really have no idea. Cause I think there was talk at one point in time where there was going to be a purchasing committee. And they were the only people that could authorize payment of any claims or purchasing of anything. But that has since gone away. So I'm not 100% sure, but I know that in past minutes I've seen that there was a purchasing committee talked about and possibly formed, but not
No, that's,
active.
and what you're saying is one of the things that I'm remembering now, that when I went through this the first time, that I wanted to bring out. For each committee reviews claims and sends them to the board for approval. So I think that's something that should be included for each committee. Reviewing of the claims specific to the duties and the responsibilities of that committee. However we want to word it, but we should include there that that's a responsibility or an activity for each committee. I don't believe we have any committee that doesn't review claims, do we, other than negotiations? And that's the purpose. That's the purpose of doing it that way, so I think that should be in here, that that's what they're doing. I know it's all implied, Charlie, but I just.
Well, I mean, it's just a
If
ridiculous
somebody-
point.
Somebody that doesn't know anything, that wants to see how we operate, that's part of the reason for having it in black and white.
And you're assuming it's implied, but apparently at one point it wasn't implied because it wasn't done that way.
How was it done?
Through a single committee that did all the approval of it. According to that.
I believe so. Just
So,
like I said, from reading past minutes, I do know that there was a purchasing committee that had to approve anytime any money was spent. They had to approve it, or there was talk about it.
Should strike that committee.
It makes sense.
Maybe they raised their own cattle out on the farm at that one time, butchered it and stuff like
Right.
that. They didn't have to buy a damn thing.
It makes sense to do it the way we're doing it now,
Right.
because each committee is most familiar with the operation
Exactly.
of the area that they're.
Yeah.
so,
Strike it.
Strike
well,
that,
what
yeah.
we need to do is make it say what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think
Exactly.
that for each committee, you can backtrack.
You have a history of doing it the way we're
So-
doing
Have
it
a
right now
statement
without
and they're
our
saying
saying.
that they're
So
responsible.
Anything in
she's
writing.
there listening, thinking, how do I word this?
Yes.
If no one of the committee who's responsible for it will take it, something like
A
that.
blanket statement in the very beginning saying each committee. If you could list it individually each, or if you could do a blanket statement in the beginning saying each committee is responsible for the review and approval of claims.
That would imply that every committee could set up their luncheon menu, serve it right in here and pay for it.
I guess I would rather have it stated agents for each one. So,
Yeah, still gotta go to the county board for final approval.
Somebody, says, well, what does my committee do, then they've got everything right there. I would rather do it that way myself, even though it is repetitive. But I think something along the lines of what you're saying, Amanda, would be the best way to word it.
Well, and if you, it is repetitive, but if you read any state statute, they are repetitive. They will say the same thing 3 times under each specific thing.
At least.
Okay, we left off under judicial and public safety with subparagraph B where it talks about the county purchasing ordinance. So we're gonna take the county purchasing ordinance out of that subparagraph. The next paragraph says confer with the circuit judges on operation of courts and court-related offices and agencies. I believe that's accurate. Consider programs involving state's attorney, public defender, and court services departments. Tax committee is the next one. Is there anything else on judicial, Jed, that?
Pretty well, that's good, that's good.
Okay, so we'll be adding the part about the claims. Tax committee shall have the following duties: consider the overall tax cycle from the initial assessment of the property through the tax collection, consider tax revenue sources and policies, consider techniques, procedures, and practices to achieve the maximum utilization of the data processing equipment within the tax cycle. Is that something like this deal that they're talking about doing now? What do you call it, CAMA?
Oh, yeah.
That would be an example of what that's talking about.
Right.
D, consider in the GIS system as well, because consider matters relating to the conduct of elections in the county, review and recommend to the legislative study committee legislation and procedures to improve the election process.
We don't have that committee.
Is that the legislative study committee of the state?
I have no idea. We have a legislative committee that the Clerk and Recorders Association presents bills and whatnot for. I am not part of that committee. But if you guys have a recommendation or anything like that, it can be submitted.
I mean, you talk about the elections and all that, so to me, that first part of it is appropriate, but the last part about review and recommend, to me, that I would take that out.
That's all state statute, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it is, but you can, if you feel like there's an election law that you don't agree with, it can be something that's submitted to my legislative committee and they can see if they want to present it or not, but I don't know if this is I have no idea what the legislative study committee is.
Unless somebody feels otherwise, I think we should remove that last part. Keep in the consider matters relating to the conduct of elections in the county, the rest of it would take out. The last one is prepare the annual tax levy for approval by the county board. That's a biggest, one of the biggest jobs of the tax committee. Now, we've added the zoning committee as a part of the tax committee, so in a minute we'll get to the zoning committee, but we're gonna put the two of them together in here. Call it the tax / zoning. Or planning and zoning committee. Next one here is a highway and transportation committee. Highway and transportation committee have the following duties: assist the county board in all highway matters such as the appointment of the county engineer, development of policy, and matters pertaining to the operation of the county highway department, in particular supervision of employees, purchases, leases of highway construction and maintenance equipment, and recording of highway plats, design and construction of county highways, and other matters of general concern associated with overall highway program. Advertise for and conduct lettings for contracts concerning the expenditures of county motor fuel tax funds and other construction projects as provided by law. This committee shall make recommendations to the county board for approval or rejection of bids received at the lettings. Recommend to the county board such tax levies and budgets for the expenditures of monies for highway purposes as are required. Recommend additions or deletions from the county highway system. Approve plans for proposed improvements. Approve the erection of traffic control devices. Recommend agreements with the municipalities for maintenance of county highways and municipalities. Recommend concurrence and so forth. Committee shall meet monthly. First time it talks about that. Maybe that's a state sentence that should be put for the other committees, if you think it's important to say when they shall meet. Is there anything in there, Charlie, that needs to be changed?
I don't think so, I think it's pretty good.
You like saying in there that they shall meet monthly?
It says it monthly.
But it doesn't say that for the other committees, so my question is, should we put that in for the other committees too?
I'm not in charge of the other committees, I will not rule for them, I only work on that one.
I'm just interested in your thinking.
I don't think about the other committees in that respect, except that they're judgment, not mine.
Okay.
How about sidestepping that?
That's pretty good.
Well, I think
Maybe
it's
a
putting
good
them on their own
competition.
pedestal.
Yeah.
Look at that, we got all these pedestals in here. I can stand on 2 or 3 of them at one time.
What do the rest of you think? Should there be a sentence like that in there for the other committees?
Yes, as long as it's in one, probably should be in all of them.
Well, I tell you what, I think it should be a paragraph, meet as needed. Not just once a month, once in a while, they ought to meet once in a while, more than that, if there's serious things before them.
No, it's gonna say they shall meet monthly or as needed.
Actually, this one should say monthly or as needed, more as if needed.
I just asked you if you were happy with everything.
Well, I'm happy because we don't have emergencies, even when people die, we go on.
Let's see if we can add that sentence to all the other committees as well, about meeting monthly and put monthly or as needed. And I think or as needed also can be interpreted.
Did you hedge on that one? Did you
Well,
take my?
as needed can mean they can meet more than once
That's
a
what I
month.
meant.
Or it means that they can skip a month if there's no business to come before them, right?
Which
And you said
this
or
committee
in-
has skipped a month before.
Right. There's been times when we didn't have, especially this
Did
committee.
you use the word or in there?
Yeah, or as needed,
Well, maybe they can go 3 months without needing.
could be,
Never know.
could be.
They're suggesting monthly though.
Next is the Health Services Committee shall have the following duties: consider issues relating to public health, mental health objectives, enforce licensing and impoundment of stray animals, work with volunteer services, oversee the county's recycling operation and landfill.
Landfill. We don't have a landfill, do we?
Okay, mental health is something that should be part of the health committee. Mental health people don't seem to wanna cooperate, but I'd be in favor of leaving that in there. Volunteer services, I don't know what the deal is with them. That shouldn't be part of the health committee, should it?
We don't have.
I'm sure they look back and forth the health committee all the time.
They what?
They work with health committee all the time.
They do.
Sure.
I've never seen.
Maybe you don't see it, but they do. You get a call in, somebody calls about what they need. They work in conjunction with one another, make sure they're set up wherever they eventually wind up, in mental health or maybe just in a home. With oversight by, some of it can be volunteer services.
But volunteer services doesn't come to the health committee meetings or report to the committee.
They still work back and forth. I know they do because I've seen it. Not everybody is needing in public health.
So I guess if he's saying that it exists, then it can stay in there and be just fine.
Okay,
Alright.
maybe that's something you can see about.
Well, I know one case that the lady passed away and she had 2 grown adults living with her that were medically fit to take care of themselves. They first were served by the volunteer services in conjunction with mental health to determine where they should go next.
Okay.
I remember the case very well,
Okay,
and it worked out fine. I think it's low key, but it should be.
okay, next one, next one is about the recycling operation and landfill. That's probably something that should go to the finance committee. They're the ones that have been approving really the only activity with that has been the maintenance of the supervision, whatever, of the fund. And then working with the city about the recycling of the year.
Do we have a contract with somebody on a landfill, or what, how do we work that?
We don't have a contract with anybody.
Do we have a
We have
landfill
a
then?
solid waste fund that we're using to fund the recycling agreement we have with the city.
And that's residual from the landfill that's now closed.
It's closed, is why I wondered about that.
Where
But
was
it's,
it?
but that
It's
money,
found by Bryce, you know where Bryce is, just across the road south. On the road that goes from Melford all the way to,
there's a landfill in Donovan too.
is there? Oh, see, I didn't know that.
We get a report from the Illinois EPA every year about the one in Donovan.
Is it, must be open?
No, it's closed, but we never get any report about the one in Bryce.
It's inspected at least once a year, I
But
think.
we don't get a report on it.
I don't know why not.
I don't either. But that's neither
I
here
think
nor
it's
there.
considered a state one, but I'm not sure.
My opinion is that sentence should go to the finance committee.
It should go to somebody overseeing it in the county in case there's a problem if there ever, and there is a one that I know of, but we could have one and I not know it because nobody's reported it.
Okay. Next one is the Planning and Zoning Committee. Planning and Zoning Committee shall have the following duties: consider all zoning and planning matters that may affect the county. Review decisions of the County Regional Planning Commission. We don't have a County Regional Planning Commission any longer.
Why not?
But I said we don't need it.
So there.
We don't have a
I
what?
brought up one meeting and I said, well, I don't think we need it anymore. The zoning committee can. That's the way it's been for the last 5 or 6 years or more, whatever it's been. Other than that, I guess that, if you just take the county regional planning commission out of that sentence, the rest of it makes sense, is right. C, considering any changes to zoning provisions, county code, and county comprehensive plan, that's fine. And then we need to add in the things like meeting monthly, paying the claims, all that needs to be added there. Goes on to talk about the chairman of the county board being an ex officio member of all standing committees. I think that's the way we've been operating. I think that's fine. Committee chairperson's name, that's the way we've been doing that, about the chairman naming the committee's chairperson and members of the committees, subject to the approval of the majority vote of the board. Second person named versus the vice chairperson, that's the way we're doing it. Committee size, the size of the standing committees is determined by the chairman and with the advice and consent of the county board. That's the way we've done that. We do need to add in for the negotiations committee. We don't have anything for that. That is a separate committee. Obviously only meets whenever the union contracts are up, which happens to be the case going on right now, but it is I think in my opinion, a standing committee, so we probably need to put together some wording on that to include in here. But that pretty well takes us up to that part of it, on to the next part, which is the rules of order and so forth. So I'd like to say let's stop there. Next month we'll begin on that. It's page 2:15, CD 2:15, okay?
How far do you want us to go? How far do you want us to read?
Well, the rest,
You can read ahead all the way.
yeah, keep going.
Like I'm gonna remember it all.
As much as you can. We're not gonna do executive session today. I don't have any appointments, correspondence, we'll pass around. Letter from Senator Bennett about his meeting last Monday. So that's already passed. Was at the meeting. Largely welfare oriented with all the people in the state where you can go to get grants and all that kind of stuff. They've got oodles of money to give away. Guess whose money it is? Every grant that you apply for costs twice as much as what you get. And you add in the administrative costs and all the other costs associated with grants. It's just welfare. Socialism. I don't know of any nice things to say about it, other than we need money. That's the way we gotta operate, that's the way we gotta.
Really check there.
Yeah. Refund.
July 24th is gone.
Yeah, we always get them after the fact.
They don't want to sit very well. We told you about it.
It's okay, they give us our money back.
I wouldn't want to go, I want to go, see UCLA's grants.
We got our tax bill, which I said, I think we need to make sure that it's accurate. Because- and I can get together with Amanda on that to make sure that's accurate. We should get a,
Just endorse the check to me, that's all I want.
He doesn't want
You're
much.
too late. Amanda already said she gets the check.
you're really feeling good this morning, aren't you?
Sorry, Amanda, I didn't mean to upset you.
The thing that we need to do about the tax bill, I guess we need to consider some kind of a motion. It's due on the 18th of August, the first installment, so that means we've gotta pay it by that time. But I'd like to make sure that it's correct. We need to have a claims form made up for it.
I move that we do the necessary steps to get it taken care of.
I amend that out of the Lyle parents account.
No, I do not accept that amendment.
Well, we'll vote on it and see how you come out.
Okay, somebody, you seconding Lyle's motion?
I did.
All in favor, you better cover all.
Aaron,
Yes.
Alf,
Yes,
Awful,
Oh, yes.
Whitlow,
Yes.
Sure.
thanks, Lyle.
Okay, we don't have any other claims to come before the board this morning, so we don't have to do that. We got old business. We got new business, old business.
I just, well, it can be old or new. I just wanna let you guys know that I do have my first applicant for the sale of liquor before noon. Shag Bark has paid the fee, so that's gonna be coming to the board. So they can sell alcohol before noon.
So,
Yeah, they do have golf leagues before noon, so.
Right, so,
Yeah.
well, the sale of liquor before noon on
Right,
Sunday.
right.
I guess. So anyway, they have applied, so they, that will be coming to the board.
John, can I ask a question?
Yep.
Do we have any other applicants for the engineering job?
Nope.
We place any more notices that we're looking?
Well, we continue the ones that we have.
We're continuing.
If somebody can tell me where else to do it, I'd be happy to do it, but
I think we should all put our heads together and find some other places to do it.
I'm all for that. I have to say, I'm at a wit's end, I don't know of any other place to advertise.
College of Engineering is like University of Illinois, or other state colleges, graduate engineers.
I don't know that they would have the qualifications, they'd have to be licensed in professional engineer in Illinois, and they have to have 4 or 5 years' experience according to what we've got listed in our deal. Maybe if they have graduates that check back there, that might be one.
Yeah, they could have, because they some graduates come in for a second degree and that kind of thing. I mean, I'm sure that, there's graduates that have already had papers and just extend papers for other stuff, and might include something.
That would have to be in their civil engineering, have to be, right?
I'm not a professor of engineers, so I can't tell you who qualifies for what.
No, I think it's a civil engineering degree that they get.
Usually, yes, that might cross over with something else,
It wouldn't be mechanical
like
engineering, it would be aeronautical engineering.
he'd fly over your farm looking for,
They
you
do
know, like
that.
stills from that many years ago.
Crop dust. Yeah, I think we could maybe consider looking into something like that, civil engineering departments, and see if they have any kind of alumni deals, We have gotten another email from the applicant that we do have, wanting to know what's going on. We need to do something as far as he's concerned. I'm really reluctant to go ahead and interview him without us being prepared to make a decision, because that just leaves him hanging in the balance anyway for
Well,
long.
but if you have one applicant, you don't interview him, he's gonna look elsewhere too. And you won't have any.
Well, that's a possibility.
What'd you say?
I said if you've got an applicant, you don't interview him or acknowledge anything, then he may move on to someplace else and you won't even have the one applicant, so.
Yeah, that, every application you have, they could take a job somewhere else.
Yeah,
I think that's only fair
How's
to
it
both
going
sides.
to do on her test? Maybe was that her name?
Yes, she didn't pass the first test, she's going, there's another test gonna be done on August 9th in Mercer County, which is out west, she's gonna go to that. In fact, she's here today in an assessment, if you wanna say hi to her or anything, she's over here with Bobby.
you ready to accept the motion?
Yep.
And when we adjourn.
And second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, we are adjourned.